5 October 1968. 9 SOG recon men from Spike Team Alabama inserted into eastern Laos. They landed on top of an NVA division, approximately 10,000 soldiers dug in along a knoll west of the Ashaw Valley. The team leader died in the first 60 seconds. The assistant team leader lay face down praying and never fired his weapon. The junior radio operator, a 20-year-old paratrooper, stood up and started shooting back. By nightfall, 6 of the 9 men were extracted alive. The NVA division that surrounded them reported 90% casualties. Across the entire war, MACV-SOG, a unit that never fielded more than 600 recon men at any given time, documented a kill ratio approaching 158 to 1. In 1968, the NVA decided to surround those men whenever they found them. It was the most expensive decision they ever made. The Military Assistance Command Vietnam Studies and Observations Group ran the only sustained American ground reconnaissance of the Ho Chi Minh Trail. The name was a lie. Studies and Observations was bureaucratic camouflage for the most classified special operations unit of the war. Teams of 2 or 3 Americans and 6 to 9 indigenous fighters, Montagnards, Chinese Nungs, ethnic Vietnamese, inserted by helicopter into eastern Laos or Cambodia to find what the North Vietnamese were moving and where. They went in sterile, no insignia, often carrying AK-47s and eating Vietnamese rations. They stopped bathing days before launch to mask American scent from PAVN tracker dogs. At peak strength, roughly 400 to 600 recon men ran cross-border missions at any given time. In 1968, the unit suffered more killed and wounded than it had positions to fill. 10 teams were lost entirely. 14 more were overrun. By late that year, the NVA had the pattern solved. Counter-recon companies, tracker units with dogs, and LZ watchers permanently camped near every usable landing zone in the Prairie Fire area of operations. Compromise on insertion was the rule. Teams were fighting within minutes of wheels touching down. 2 days before the mission that would prove what happened when the system worked, Specialist 4 Lynn M. Black Jr., 1-2, and radio operator for Spike Team Alabama out of FOB-1 at Phu Bai, a combat-hardened paratrooper who had already served with the 173rd Airborne, flew a visual reconnaissance over the target in a Vietnamese O-1 Bird Dog. A 12.7mm round came up through the floor. It struck the co-pilot under the chin. The round ricocheted his helmet off the ceiling and into Black's lap, with part of the man's head still inside it. Pinned in the rear seat, Black vomited into the helmet. That was not the mission. That was just looking at the map. What kept men alive when things went wrong on the ground was not the men themselves. It was a system. A single phrase on the radio that rewired the entire air war to one grid square. The phrase was, Prairie Fire. 3 radio emergency tiers governed every SOG mission. Team emergency meant someone was sick or wounded. Tactical emergency meant in contact with the enemy but holding. Prairie Fire emergency meant 3 conditions simultaneously: in contact with a much superior force, surrounded or about to be, and death imminent. Every pilot flying in country had been briefed before takeoff. On hearing a Covey FAC call Prairie Fire, you stop what you are doing and you come. The call diverted all available Air Force, Navy, Marine, Army, and Vietnamese Air Force aircraft within range, explicitly authorized to abandon other tasking. A-1 Sky Raiders for precision danger close work. F-4 Phantoms for high-drag bombs and napalm.
AH-1 Cobras and UH-1 gunships pushing 4,000 rounds per minute through GAU-2B miniguns, 100 rounds per second, 6 streams of tracer cutting through canopy like a saw. And orbiting above the chaos, sequencing the air stack, a Covey FAC in an OV-10 Bronco or O-2 Skymaster with a former recon man riding the back seat, talking the ground team through the geometry of staying alive. On 19 February 1968, the system was tested at full intensity. SSG Fred W. Zabatoski's RT Maine walked into a Pavan-based complex east of Atopiu, Laos. Bunkers, concertina wire, an estimated 2,000 NVA. The night before, his friend SSG Doug Glover had told him, "I had a dream that I'm going to get killed. I know I'm going to die tomorrow." Prairie Fire was called. A-1E Sky Raiders dropped 750-pound bombs and napalm so close Zabatoski could feel the heat through his fatigues. One rescue Huey was shot down on liftoff. Zabatoski,
crushed ribs, broken back, was thrown clear from the wreck and dragged the wounded pilot out of the burning aircraft. Glover was dead. 3 Nungs were dead. Both door gunners were dead. The system had worked. It had also cost everything it touched. Zavotoski received the Medal of Honor from President Nixon. SFC Jerry Mad Dog Shriver, the man Radio Hanoi put a $10,000 bounty on, the man whose eyes Captain Bill O'Rourke of CCS said held no soul, no emotion, once radioed back when told his platoon was surrounded. His response? No, I've got him right where I want him, surrounded from the inside. That was a joke, but for the men who ran Prairie Fire missions, it was also a system description. The system would prove it on 5 October 1968. Black was back. The co-pilot's blood was 2 days old on his flight suit. The target had not changed. The 1-0 had not changed his mind. The VNAF 219th Special Operations Squadron King B H-34 spiraled down toward the knoll. Black saw the NVA flag first. From his 173rd Airborne experience, he knew what a regimental flag on an LZ meant. At minimum, thousands of enemy soldiers in the surrounding jungle. He and Cowboy, a Vietnamese fighter named Con Don, argued for immediate abort. The 1-0, a sergeant fresh from a German A-team with 0 SOG experience, refused. No, I'm an American. No slant-eyed SOB is going to run me off. They landed. Point man Hua walked into an L-shaped ambush. AK-47 fire lifted the canteen covers around his waist. He dropped. 3 rounds hit the 1-0 in the head, dead before he fell. The 1-1, a lieutenant, a general's son, went face down on the ground and began praying. He did not fire a single shot for the rest of the engagement. Black, the most junior American on the team, stood up. He began firing single-aimed shots, methodically dropping NVA soldiers on the rise above him. Prairie Fire emergency was declared at approximately 0900. Every available air asset in 1st Corps diverted to one knoll in Laos. First in, Marine HML 367 Scarface Hueys. Then the Americall Division's 176th Aviation Company Minutemen muskets, UH-1B gunships. Pilot Dan, the executioner Cook, hovered his Huey between the team and the NVA assault line and skipped 2.75-inch rockets off the ground into the enemy at near zero range. 2 King Bees were shot down attempting extraction. The first took an RPG and capsized. The second struck a rock outcrop, exploded, and fell 1,000 feet into the valley, carrying the team's resupply ammunition. An A-1H Sky Raider, call sign Snoopy, rolled in with napalm so close that Black heard the distinctive metallic click-click of the canisters releasing overhead. Treetops erupted into sheets of white, yellow, and orange flame. F-4 Phantoms followed with more napalm and cannon fire. The NVA response was tactically sound. They got close to the belt, hugging the SOG perimeter so tight that air support could not engage without hitting friendlies. So Black's team built a wall out of the dead. They dragged NVA bodies into a circle around their position, stacking corpses as sandbags. When NVA soldiers threw grenades by leather thongs, the team cycled a rhythm: catch, throw, duck, rock. Black told the praying 1-1, "This is no time to pray. Do unto others before they do unto you." By late afternoon, 2 HH-3E Jolly Green Giants of the 3rd Air Rescue and Recovery Group had been shot down over the knoll. JG-28 took a severed fuel line and limped home. JG-10, piloted by Major Vernon Sam Grenier, took hits to both engines. Fire in both nacelles, crash-landed, Grenier's back broken, Sergeant Greg Lawrence killed on impact. Then Major Don Olson brought JG-32 into a draw so narrow the rotor blades were trimming jungle canopy on both sides. RPG rounds struck the armored belly. The team loaded. JG-32 caught fire and crash-landed 2 ridges east. A 4th Jolly Green, piloted by Coast Guard Exchange Officer Lieutenant Commander Lonnie Mixon, absorbed over 30 hits, pulling the survivors out. 6 of 9 SOG men made it back to Da Nang. It was 2,200 hours when Black saw the words painted on the fuselage, "So that others may live." 3 decades later, A man identifying himself as a retired NVA general telephoned Lynn Black. He said he had been the colonel who triggered the L-shaped ambush that morning. "You shot me 3 times that day," he told Black. "The worst thing about having you shoot me was the fact that I was lying there, watching you kill my men, and there was nothing I could do about it." Then he corrected the intelligence estimate. Not a battalion of 3,000, a full division. Approximately 10,000 soldiers of the Army of North Vietnam on that knoll. 90% casualties. Schreiber's joke had been literal. They had them surrounded from the inside. And Prairie Fire made the NVA pay for every foot of that circle. The North Vietnamese learned. They raised counter-recon companies specifically to hunt SOG teams. They offered what amounted to a Kill an American medal. They jammed FM frequencies, duplicated smoke grenade colors to confuse extraction pilots, and inserted intelligence agents inside SOG headquarters itself. Major John L. Plaster, 1-0 of RT Illinois, and later Covey Rider, wrote that the NSA twice intercepted enemy traffic, warning of imminent SOG operations that could only have come from a mole. The NVA adapted constantly, and it still cost SOG everything. In 1968 alone, 10 teams lost, 14 overrun. On 23 August, 100 NVA sappers penetrated Fob 4 at Marble Mountain. 3 CIA flash warnings had been ignored, and killed 17 Green Berets in a single night, the worst day in Special Forces history. Over RT Alabama, 4 helicopters were shot down in one afternoon. The men who ran Prairie Fire knew the math. They ran it anyway. On 4 April 2001, President George W. Bush awarded MACV-SOG the Presidential Unit Citation at Fort Bragg. The language was blunt. Despite casualties that sometimes became universal, SOG's operators never wavered. Major General John K. Singlaub, Chief SOG from 1966 to 1968, accepted the award at 79. 50 SOG operators remain unaccounted for today. Jerry Shriver is one of them. The $10,000 bounty was never collected. His body was never returned. His remains are still somewhere in Cambodia. The man who said he had them surrounded from the inside, who wanted to quit but never did, who kept running missions until the jungle kept him.